What's up, Bearded Brothers? It's good to see you all here. Today I'm going to do something a little different, not doing a review of any products, but specifically want to talk about castor oil. I've recently been playing around with different oils, some that have more castor oil than others, just to kind of see what it does for my beard, and it really got me thinking. I wanted to look into castor oil. Castor oil seems to be kind of a hot topic, or even a polarizing topic when we start talking about oils and what oils some people like and don't like and why. And what I found out about castor oil was really interesting and informative. So the question I have today that we're going to answer is castor oil bad for your beard or good for your beard? So castor oil comes from the Ricinus Communis bean, the castor bean, which comes from the Ricinus Communis plant, which is an evergreen shrub that gives off beans that are the castor beans. The interesting thing about castor oil and castor beans are that they've been used since, as far as we know, research has shown that they've been used since about 4000 BC. Castor beans have been found in the tombs of some of the Egyptian pharaohs dating back to about 4000 BC. And what we've learned is that back then we know that the ancients were using them. Number one, they were using the oil from the bean for eye drops. To help with eye irritation. They were using it as facial oil and anointing oil. And then number three, they were using it as oil for lighting lamps. Now, the first thing that we have to talk about when we talk about castor oil, and more importantly, before we talk about castor oil, is talking about the Ricinus Communis bean in and of itself. You may notice the first part of the name, Ricinus, comes from the word ricin. And if you've watched the news over the last 30 years or so, you may recognize ricin. Ricin is a compound derived from the castor bean that is deadly and is a neurotoxin. And it is a somewhat easy and inexpensive poison to make. We know that ricin has been researched back as early as the 1940s from the United States military in terms of its potential as a chemical warfare agent. And we do know that it has been listed by the Centers for Disease Control as a Class B terrorist biochemical weapon. So when you first talk about the castor bean and we talk about the ricin that can be derived therefrom, you think, wow, it's got ricin, it's toxic. That is true, but that concern is alleviated by the way that castor oil is made from the castor bean. So when the castor bean is pressed and the oil comes out, if it is heated up to 175 degrees Fahrenheit or higher, then the ricin, the toxic element of the oil, becomes destabilized, breaks away from the chain of the acids, and it becomes inert and therefore healthy to use. Now, the question is, what is healthy to use when we talk about castor oil? So I want to take a couple minutes and talk about some of the things that castor oil is used for in medicine, the health fields, and as supplements. All right, so we know that once the Ricin Communis is pressed and the oil is treated, the ricin becomes inert, it is no longer deadly, and then we're left with pure castor oil. Now, the interesting thing about the castor oil is that it's used for many things. It's used for food additives, it's used for skincare products, primarily what we're going to talk about here in a minute. It's used as industrial lubricant, and it's also used as biofuel, used in biodiesel. So there are really a lot of interesting things about the castor bean, and in particular, inert castor oil and the benefits and the uses of it. What most people probably think of when they think about castor oil is its use as a laxative. Pure castor oil can be taken by mouth, and the ricinoleic acid then is absorbed into the lining of the stomach. It then really stimulates a strong laxative effect. My dad, who unfortunately passed away at the end of last year, I remember him telling me he grew up in the South, and whenever there was any issues with constipation, my grandma would make him take castor oil. So he always hated castor oil, but that's probably what most people know it for. Number two, castor oil is rich, very rich in ricinoleic acid. That is a monounsaturated fatty acid. So therefore, it is a natural moisturizer. But we will get back to this because while it is initially a natural moisturizer, the long-term effects if you leave it on the skin are that it tends to have a drying effect, which really was the purpose for me making this video. And I'm going to come back to that last. But initially, it is a natural moisturizer. Today, I'm using an oil that the number one ingredient is castor oil, but it also has fractionated coconut oil, jojoba oil, and argan oil in it. And those do a good job of counteracting the ultimate drying effect that castor oil in and of itself has. And we will get back to that in a minute. Number three, castor oil promotes wound healing. If you take a look at the ingredients on a lot of over-the-counter salves that are used for burn or wound healing, they contain castor oil. And the reason it is such a good agent in those types of situations are because, number one, castor oil has a very strong antibiotic effect, and it also has a very strong antifungal effect. Number five, this really goes back and kind of complements number four. Pure castor oil has a really good effect at reducing acne. And that is because it does have a very strong antibacterial and antifungal effect. But ultimately, the way it reduces acne is by that antibacterial effect and by the fact that ultimately when pure castor oil is used alone on the skin, it is a drying agent and not a moisturizer. And again, we're going to talk about that at the end because that was really kind of the point of the video. So there was an interesting article, and I will link it in the description below, from Smart Health Advice magazine. And the point of the article was why you should use castor oil on your beard. And the great thing about this article is it really does a good job of pointing out the positives of castor oil and the potential negatives of castor oil. So I want to talk about those. But first of all, when we talk about castor oil primarily and specifically in beard care products, again, we point out that it's very high in monounsaturated fatty acids, especially ricinoleic acid. And ricinoleic acid is a very rich 18-bonded carbon fatty acid. I'm not going to get into the structure of the molecule other than just to say that it is a really good monounsaturated fatty acid. Castor oil also includes high levels of vitamin E and vitamin F, high levels of triglycerides, and it has a lot of proteins and structural minerals that really can help the beard. Not so much the beard, the skin, and we'll talk about that. So ricinoleic acid, that's what provides the antibacterial and antifungal and antimicrobial properties. It's really good at keeping the hair follicles healthy, but it doesn't do it by the initial moisturizing effect of the ricinoleic acid. There's also oleic acid that is really highly absorbent into the skin. Linoleic acid, which has more antibacterial and moisturizing properties. Stearic acid, which is used to coat the hair. That's what really gives, when you put castor oil into the beard, you get it onto the skin and then you coat your beard with it. It is that stearic acid that gives you that shiny appearance on the beard. and it does protect the beard hairs. So the question often comes up whether or not castor oil can help promote or stimulate hair growth or hair thickness. And there really has been one study on the issue, and the study is from Experimental Dermatology, where it took a look at the difference between finasteride or alopecia and Latisse. And you might remember Latisse a few years ago was on TV all the time. There were commercials for it. And it is the product that you might recall was marketed towards women for eyelash growth. And it contained castor oil. And the question was, is it the castor oil that is causing the hair growth, or is it something else? What the study found is that when castor oil is applied to the skin where hair growth is occurring, the follicles then produce prostaglandins. And it was thought maybe that prostaglandins would help the beard, or in that case, the eyelashes, actually grow longer and thicker. But what the study found was that it wasn't actually the prostaglandins that was doing this, that there basically were two elements in Latisse separate from the castor oil that was causing the hair growth: latanoprost and hematoprost. Those were the two. Those are not provided by castor oil or by the ricinoleic acid. So we know from the study in the dermatology journal that it can't be said that castor oil will promote or cause your beard to grow stronger, thicker, longer. That said, the interesting thing about castor oil is that ultimately, while initially it certainly hydrates the skin, in the long term, it actually strips moisture away, and it's due to its antibacterial properties, and it can actually dry the skin. So if you're going to use castor oil, don't look at castor oil by itself as something that will hydrate and keep the skin hydrated long lasting. In fact, castor oil is used in some products to strip away oils that have been on the skin, and it does a good job of that. So what I found in the research is that castor oil by itself probably is not a good product to put in your beard. The research has shown that castor oil works best when it is mixed with other carrier oils, particularly coconut oil, because coconut oil is one of those oils that is highly emollient. It is a very strong emollient, which means it does hydrate the skin and keeps the skin hydrated. So ultimately, the question of is castor oil bad or good for your beard? The answer is it can be either. If you are someone who has naturally oily skin and you tend to get acne underneath your beard, which I do quite a bit, especially in the mustache, castor oil can be really good for helping keep that acne down, but it does it by ultimately drying out the skin. So the research kind of shows that if you're going to use castor oil in your beard and you do have fairly oily skin to begin with, using castor oil 1 or 2 days a week can really help keep the acne down. The bad thing is if you're just using castor oil only, and I don't know anybody who does that, but if you're just using castor oil only, it will probably overly dry out your skin and can even lead to some dandruff in the beard. Now, on the other hand, if you're using castor oil with other carrier oils, particularly coconut, argan, and jojoba oil, which most of our beard companies do, they'll put the castor oil in with that, then it is good for the beard. It adds antibacterial and antifungal properties to beard oil. So I think to sum up, castor oil is probably an oil that you should use somewhat sparingly. I certainly wouldn't use it every day. Guys, I hope you found this video informative. If you did, give it a thumbs up. If you didn't like it, give it a thumbs down. I'd like to hear your comments down below, what your experiences have been with castor oil. Mine have been very positive. I typically use a heavy castor oil blend a couple of times a week, typically Artius Man. I'll use it usually twice a week. One day a week I'll use it in the beard with balm. Typically one day a week I will skip the butter or overnight conditioner, leave-in conditioner, and I will put a good helping of a heavy castor oil on the skin, in the beard, and I'll just sleep with it that way. And I want that antibacterial and antifungal to go to work. And I want it to, in a sense, strip away the oils that have built up and potentially clogged the pores. And that's one of the things that castor oil is really good at. Hey, if you haven't subscribed, hit that subscribe button, and I'd love to hear your comments down below. As always, I appreciate it, and see you in the next one.